The first steps in overcoming the many hurdles related to substance abuse recovery include receiving the right help to get on the right path. First Steps Recovery is helping people get on that road to recovery with their drug and alcohol treatment program. Founder and CEO Josh Beauchene is here to explain more on the First Steps Recovery program. Hi, Josh.
Good morning. How are you doing?
We're doing well. We appreciate you joining us today. Tell us about First Steps Recovery and how it was founded.
Well, First Steps Recovery, we founded it in 2014, primarily due to the lack of high-end treatment in Central Valley. And so I grew up in Tulare and had several friends in Fresno area that had called me and said, hey, I knew you're specializing in addiction as a therapist, and we don't have any high-quality treatment up here at that point. And so that's kind of where we said, hey, let's create something up there so that people don't have to leave the valley in order to really receive high quality treatment for substance use.
All right, so you saw the need. Now, what have been the long-term impacts of the pandemic on substance use disorder?
Well, substance use disorder at its height, when it's really active in a person's life, is fueled by isolation. And so typically, people start dabbling in substance use with partying and being social. But as it really turns into a full blown addiction, people begin to isolate and withdraw and start using chemicals as a solution for numbing their pain alone. And so in the pandemic, where the prescription was to really withdraw from social interactions, what we saw is a significant increase in substance use disorder at all ages, and so it's been pretty significant. For our program, it's definitely been really busy, unfortunately.
Are there any trends in particular that you're seeing with females and increases in substance use?
Yeah, so it's really interesting that we're following up a segment about females really trying to provide affordable housing, because what we're seeing in the addiction treatment space is that over the last 20 years, about 20 years ago, the alcohol industry began to target females specifically as a client or a potential client to use more alcohol. Prior to that, it just wasn't as socially acceptable for females to engage in using alcohol out socially. And so after 20 years and combined with this pandemic, what we've seen is the fruition of a lot more females coming in for treatment, because uh, what happens in the females' 40s is they begin to metabolize alcohol differently. In fact, 2 drinks of alcohol a week, just 2 drinks a week, increases a female's chance of breast cancer by 15%. So, and that's because their hormonal systems are much more complex, and once they reach their 40s, they begin to metabolize the alcohol differently. And so, what we're seeing now, after 20 years of marketing heavily from the alcohol industry to them, we're seeing a significant increase in our female population post 40 coming in for addiction treatment, and typical females, hardworking moms, business women. So it just doesn't discriminate. The addiction doesn't discriminate, and so we're seeing really beautiful people coming in struggling with alcohol addiction.
Now, are the treatments that you offer, are they gender specific, and what's the efficacy of them?
Yeah, so so we've chosen to really specialize in having gender specific treatment, and so women and men are programmed in all their group therapies and their living environment all separately. We have curriculum that is designed specifically for females and specifically for men, and what that does is it increases significantly the efficacy by 20 or 30%. We have in fact, our executive clinical director, Dr. Randazza, right now is conducting a research study on the efficacy of gender-specific treatment, because what we're finding is that people tend to feel much more safe and open in addressing all the underlying issues that contribute to their addiction when they're programming with their cohorts at the same gender.
And can you tell us about abstinence versus harm reduction, those models that you use in your treatment?
Yeah, and so what you're seeing in the industry is that for a long time, meaning the last 50 or 60 years, the abstinence model that really is in conjunction with Alcoholics Anonymous has been the going treatment modality, in our space, in the addiction and behavioral healthcare space. And now what we're beginning to see, specifically on the medical end, is what's called a harm reduction model. So abstinence is where you completely abstain from any use of any chemical as a solution for, dealing with your pain or just in general social interactions. Whereas a harm reduction model is designed to reduce the frequency of your use, but not necessarily abstain from it completely.
All right. And what do you see for the coming year when it comes to recovery, first steps, addiction?
Well, what we're seeing is that a lot more people are beginning to reach out for help and support, and so because in the Central Valley specifically, and I think general society, it's been kind of a perception that being struggling with addiction or struggling with substance use disorder is naughty. And I think what we're seeing now, and so there's been a lot of shame wrapped up in that, and you want to keep it a secret and not disclose it. And what we're seeing now is that socially we're getting more and more open in the Central Valley, to we're moving to a place of being more open with, hey, that's a normal medical struggle, just like having diabetes is a struggle, just like having heart problems is a struggle, having substance use disorder issues is a struggle as well. And so we're seeing more people reaching out for help and support. One of the things that First Steps really kind of sets us apart, again, aside from gender specific programming, is that we take phone calls from everyone in the community. We offer a lot of free support groups to help people even look at whether their loved one or they themselves have a struggle with substance use disorder, and we can kind of help triage them whether they come to our program or not. What we want to do is be the phone call that people can make just to get clarity and insight into what their loved one is dealing with or what they are dealing with themselves. And so,
Good information, Josh. If you want to learn more about this treatment program, visit firststepsrecovery.com.
This interview involves commercial content. The products and services featured appear as paid advertising.